G'day, g'day. My name's Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts, where we are looking at a fairly flat weekend, I'll be honest. But let's dive in to the top 10 for the last weekend. At number 1, we had Regretting You holding top spot with another $1.2 million, dropping 23% for a current total of just over $4 million. Chainsaw Man, the movie Reze Arc, brings in another $600,000, holds number 2, dropping 45%, which is more traditional with animes, for a current total of $2.3 million. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, does move up to number 3, but not with a super impressive number, bringing in another $600,000, dropping 36% for a current total of $2.1 million. At number 4, Black Phone 2 with another $580,000 in its third week of release, dropping 42% for a current total of $3.5 million. Good Fortune opens at number 5 with $450,000, which is fairly low, but I had fun with it. It was a bit hit and miss, but the parts that landed for me really landed for me. But it's a comedy, which is one of the more subjective genres, so don't take my word for it. See it for yourself and make your own mind. Moving on to 6 through 10. At number 6, we have Bugonia, the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie, opening with $420,000 for a current total of just under $500,000. We'll check more on his filmography a little bit later. At number 7, we have One Battle After Another. Its 7th week in release, bringing in another $250,000, dropping 43% for a current total of $8.1 million. That is trucking along quite nicely. At number 8, we have a mixed bag because there's 2 misreporting numbers, and I've chosen these ones to go with, but there are some other numbers being reported where Paw Patrol is a lot lower. But we're going with these sets of numbers where Paw Patrol comes in at number 8, a Paw Patrol Christmas, bringing in $237,000. At number 9, we have Tron Ares after 4 weeks of release, bringing in another $200,000, dropping another 52% for a current total of $4.6 million. And rounding out the top 10, we have Roofman with another $185,000, dropping another 55% in its third week of release for a current total of $1.5 million. Opening outside the top 10 that we discussed as upcoming last week, Balu Bali the Epic opened in 14th at $99,000, which is less than I had it pegged for. Kiss of the Spider-Woman opened in 33rd with $26,000. Shell opened all the way down in 53rd, bringing in just $9,000. And Deeper, a documentary, opened in 60th with around $5,000. So those ones not performing as much as I would have expected, especially Balu Bali. But let's move on to some other charts. Alright, so with Bugonia just releasing, I figured we'd have a look at the historical openings of Yorgos Lanthimos' previous movies. He's only had a few, and they are more art house, more awards contenders, a little bit out there. So, The Lobster back in 2015 opened to $65,000 in a handful of screens. In 2017, we had A Killing of a Sacred Deer opening to $125,000. The Favourite in 2018 was a bit of a bigger success for him financially, at the Australian box office at least, opening to $876,000. Poor Things in 2023 opened to $400,000. Now that was an awards contender. A lot of Oscar buzz around that one as well, so I think that's where that came from. Kinds of Kindness that came out in 2024 opened to $172,000, and Bugonia has just opened to just under $420,000, so around that Poor Things range. So not his biggest success, but not his lowest performing either. So that's his opening. We'll have a look at the total gross maybe next week or the week after, depending on how Bugonia holds up. Taking an updated look at the music biopics chart, the total gross for the music biopic releases in the Australian box office. We have Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. It's moved up to $2.1 million. So it's now beating Notorious, I Can Only Imagine, and The Runaways. So yeah, it's not getting too far up there. It's only in its second week of release, but it's still got a long way to go. I don't think it's going to be in the range of Straight Outta Compton or Walk the Line or even A Complete Unknown. Like, I'm thinking this one will probably cap out around... It really wants to beat Better Man because Better Man was considered a massive flop. And, we'll see how this holds up and we'll keep an eye on it. But not looking good for Mr. Springsteen. And with the October box office complete, figured we'll take a quick update at the year to date. So this is the entire box office revenue at this point in these years. And you can see in 2025, we are still ahead of 2024 by about 20 odd million. We're still behind 2023 by about 40 million. And we're still miles behind 2019. 2019, big number. We're not catching that. But if we can stay ahead of 2024, maybe gain on 2023, my November is pretty stacked. So we'll see how we go. Once again, no changes in the 2025 top 10 for the Australian box office. So everything released in calendar year 2025, how does it stack up? We still have a Minecraft movie at number 1 with $56.2 million. Lilo and Stitch is in its second with $34.3 million. At number 3, Jurassic World Rebirth at $31.4 million. How to Train Your Dragon is at $30.4 million. And F1 the movie is at $30.2 million. I know F1 would love to beat How to Train Your Dragon. I don't think it's going to get there. At number 6, we have Superman with $24.8 million. Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning at $23.6 million. The Fantastic Four First Steps at $17.9 million. Paddington in Peru at number 9 with $17.8 million. And rounding out the top 10, Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy with $16.5 million. There's 2 movies that are inches away from clawing onto the top 10. Will they get there? We'll have to wait and see. But we're moving into November, December. A lot of big movies coming out soon. Wicked coming out soon. That's going to move up this chart rapidly, I reckon. But that's how the top 10 currently stands. All right, moving on to upcoming releases. Theatrical releases, 6th of November. Not a lot coming out this week, but I'm going to be busy anyway. Predator Badlands. Dan Trachtenberg returns to the Predator franchise once again after giving us Prey in 2022 and Killer of Killers earlier this year. This one is starring Ellie Fanning and Demetrius Schuster-Kolomatagi in limited release. So check your smaller and indie cinemas. We have Train Dreams. This is one that's been on my radar for a while, directed by Clint Bentley and starring Joel Egerton, Felicity Jones, William H. Macy, and Kerry Condon. We have Die My Love, another awards contender, this one directed by Lynn Ramsey, starring Jennifer Lawrence, Robert Pattinson, and Lakeith Stanfield. And finally, we have Vrushnaba, a Malayalam language action movie out of India. So that's what's upcoming theatrically. Let's move over to streaming. Upcoming streaming, we have Pluribus, a new sci-fi series starting on Apple TV+, who, if we are being honest, are the current kings of sci-fi TV. This one is a new series from Vince Gilligan, who you might recognize as a creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, so, there might be something there. And this one is about how the most miserable person on Earth must save the world from happiness. I'm so keen. You can catch this one on November 6th on Apple TV+. We have Frankenstein. After its short, limited theatrical release, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein makes its way to Netflix on November 7th, starring Oscar Isaacs, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, and Christopher Waltz. And finally, we have Death by Lightning, a new miniseries on Netflix from creator Mike Makowski, starring Michael Shannon, Matthew McFadden, and Nick Offerman. That's on November 6th over on Netflix. With 4 mask-based movies watched, let's check out what I caught. First up was a rewatch of 2010's The Town, directed by Ben Affleck and starring Ben Affleck, Jeremy Renner, Rebecca Hall, and John Hamm. Giving us the tale of a professional bank robber crew getting a little too much heat and getting pursued by the FBI. I had not seen this one in a long time, but it was great to rewatch. Granted, the extended cut should have been skipped as it did drag in points, but the bank heists, the shootouts, the chase sequences were amazing on this movie, easily on the level of other A-grade action movies. Next up was Batman, Mask of the Phantasm from 1993, directed by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski, starring the late Kevin Conroy, Dana Delany, and Mark Hamill. A solid Batman movie that lets him show off his more detective side as he tries to work out the identity of a new villain that's killing off criminals. I can see why this one was so well regarded, especially when it came out in 1993. That said, there was not really anything surprising, like surprising twists or turns for me, but I can see why other people loved it. Moving on to Vespa from 2022, directed by Bruno Samper, and I apologise in advance, Christina Butti, and starring Raphaelia Chapman, Eddie Marsden, Rosie McElwain, and Richard Brake. A small-scale sci-fi movie from Belgium set in the post-apocalypse Earth after the collapse of Earth's ecosystem. A 13-year-old girl and her paralysed father, who controls a neat little remote control robot head, struggle to survive in the world. Very much a intimate and very much a slow burn sci-fi that's focused on characters, but does give us some low-level sci-fi with things like biomodding and all these weird fungus. So if that sort of wet, sticky sci-fi is not your jam, maybe give it a miss. There were parts that I'm like, ew, that's gross. But it was still a really good movie. Finally, was probably the most theme-appropriate movie of this week's challenge, 2020's Altered Carbon Re-Sleeved. Directed by Takeru Nakajima and Yoshiyuki Okada, and starring Tatsushi Suzuki, Rina Sato, and Ayaka Asai, Takeshi Kovacs is transferred into a new shell to help protect an important young tattooist from a rival Yakuza faction alongside a special SeaTac officer. I really rather like this one, but I also get the mixed reviews. It's better than season 2 of the series, by far, but it's also very, very anime, and I put anime in quotation marks there. So if you're not on board with that style of character and animation, this will not be for you. But the action sequences and the visuals were amazing. The plot was interesting enough that it kept me watching with zero distractions. Didn't pick up my phone once. Really solid, but not for everyone. This week's is a returning theme of nicknames in the title. So movies where the character is directly named in the title, like Dirty Harry and Thelma, or a group is named in the title, or their alias. So we have things like Bridget Jones's Diary, Doctor Strangelove, Freddy Got Fingered, Josie and the Pussycats, Lucy. Let's take a look at my shortlist, which contains some bad movies like Batman and Robin and Gigi. We've also got Cleo from 5 to 7 and Amiel. We've got Caramello or Tornado, Alita Battle Angel and Judge Dredd. I could do Tully or The Five Bloods. So we've got a lot to choose from. We'll see how we go. And that is it for me this week. Hopefully a short and sweet one. I am seeing Predator Badlands and Train Dreams on Thursday as a double feature. I'm taking the day off work. I've been planning this one for a while. Can't wait to see how they go. Very tonally different movies, I'm sure. Very hyped for Predator. No clue about Train Dreams apart from a lot of awards buzz. Also, Brisbane International Film Festival is back. Late November, I think the 27th through to the 30th. Go and check that out if you are based in Brisbane. We finally get one after them being completely radio silent for way too much of the year. So Brisbane International Film Festival is back. I've already bought 3 tickets to 3 movies. I'm doing a double feature and then another movie on the Saturday. But that is it for me this week. Have a good one. Watch more movies. See you next week. Bye.